So today we're in for a big one, quite frank. Um, but I don't, if this is something that people want to do a lot of crap, I mean, want to see more of, I'm all for it. Hit the like button. But anyway, let's see, this is the downfall of the most, of the most, notorious, Yu-Gi-Oh cheater by, by what, Squiddies? Anyway, this is Yu-Gi-Oh! Quite frank, um, quite frank, reason why I wanted to do Yu-Gi-Oh! Quite frank was, I wanted to get more, outside of just playing visual novels. I did a little cops and all that stuff, and it was alright, but, you know, that's something I like, but I wanna go for Yu-Gi-Oh too, because I used to play Yu-Gi-Oh, back God my years ago. Quite frank. So did this stuff is something quite frank element my something stuff I know quite frank you know um so I probably don't know like like the big freaking stars, like the big super good people, back in the day. But I at least know like the cards and shit. But anyway.
I know, but I'm saying like I don't know where it went wrong.
Your whole field is illegal.
This is
Oh,
Fraser Smith. Fraser has just won a match of Yu-Gi-Oh! In the most bizarre way possible, because he barely played a single card. Rather, his opponent has just too old himself. And you might be wondering how this is possible.
But it's so
And I'm not going to
basic. These
Peter,
moves are just like the basic moves, you know? It's so basic, and
The
it's
end
like
result, you actually left me
I'm
with that
just
choice.
saying.
Well, the person sitting across from him is none other than Peter Chang. Peter has just made 5 illegal moves in the span of less.
I mean, okay, the disrespect from I guess Peter over here. I mean, like like pure disrespect. He's just making basic moves. Like come on now, have a little respect for the guy. But just just as disrespect. But just think it's quite funny. Five moves, five freaking moves, all illegal. It's it's, I can't wait to see this. Though the anti spell fragment. Oh God, this spell, this trap. I freaking hate this fucking trap card. I don't play the game anymore, but when I was playing it, I fucking hate it. I hate that shit. Uh,
Less than 10 minutes, and his current field on the board is entirely illegal. But the community wasn't surprised because this was not the first time that Peter Chang had done this. You see, the man was
oh
previously
boy.
disqualified and banned from organized play on multiple separate occasions for unsporting conduct, cheating. And for over a decade, Peter Chang was one of the most well-known names on the competitive Yu-Gi-Oh scene. Not necessarily for his
Uh, oh my Dragon Maid. Oh my. Okay. Wait a minute.
skill per
Okay, I'm
se,
not playing with
rather
that game
for
already.
his antics over the years. But on this day in particular, his actions would culminate in perhaps the most legendary feature match ever, and luckily for the world, it was live streamed for thousands of viewers. Now,
Oh
to
God.
understand the gravity of the situation that we just saw, we're gonna have to rewind just a little bit for context. This is a story of Peter Chang, the most notorious Yu-Gi-Oh player of all time. Our story starts over 15 years ago in the year 2009, where Peter Chang was an
Light
accomplished
swarms.
Yu-Gi-Oh player who would travel the world to attend championship level tournaments composing of thousands of players and rare
Those two.
cards worth lots of money on the
Oh,
line.
God.
His prior success included multiple top cup finishes at these tournaments, but before he became a semi-big name, Peter was a dominant player in the New Jersey area, winning nearly all of the local and regional tournaments. But how could one man consistently win almost every single tournament?
Light
It was a
swarms.
question that many would ask, and over
Light
time,
swarms.
people slowly became became suspicious about his style of play, and rumors began to spread, to the point where Peter would be known locally as a shady character with a history of connivery beyond the mere rules of the game. Local players would accuse Peter of stacking their decks and shuffling them in a manner that would cause them to draw the worst cards. At the same time, others suggested that he had marked his own sleeves to draw the powerful cards that he wanted. His opponents would basically agree that Peter seemed to open the perfect hands every time, with the player even saying that at one of the local stores, Peter was banned from using white sleeves because they were so easily markable. And players who knew Peter in real life would claim that he was caught cheating on 7 separate occasions. It became so widely known that even some of Peter's closest friends would not refute this claim. But in light of this, he was never punished officially by the Yu-Gi-Oh! Organized Play Committee, as his hijinks were limited to his local area at the time. Nevertheless, it got to the point where Peter was disqualified from numerous local and regional tournaments, and eventually banned from several local stores. Coincidentally,
But that's really bad. That's really bad.
as Peter's success flourished, he grew bored of the Jersey scene. I mean, yeah, being banned from several local stores probably didn't help. So he began to travel around the country to attend tournaments on the major circuit. So we're talking about the largest tournaments in the world here. This would prove to be extremely rewarding, for his skills were more than enough to compete on a national level. Peter would quickly make a name for himself, going undefeated at multiple events in a row and threatening even the strongest players at the time, upsetting legendary names like Adam Korn and Jeff Jones. At the same time, he would supplement his travel expenses as a backpack vendor, someone who carried around binders chock full of cards to buy low and resell at a higher price. Though it was technically and still is against the rules to buy and sell with anyone besides the official vendors in the convention hall, back then
Nobody pays attention to that rule back then. Nobody was still paying attention to that. I was still gonna do it.
full businessman to trade and buy with.
Got
Yeah.
something that might interest you.
Yeah, exactly the same thing.
Unsurprisingly, Peter was known to be extremely hard to deal with, often charging well over the market prices, especially if he knew that the buyer was in a desperate position. And according to a tournament
wow.
report, one man who was the unfortunate victim of Peter's business practices
no.
had said, "When we got to the event, I had to ship $30 for sanctums, ignitions, etc., and got savaged by Peter Chang for like $20. Sucks
Wow.
to suck." You can imagine my
Damn.
dismay when my teammate Dylan showed up later with a binder full of artifact cards. Except that the other vendors were sold out of the cards, so the man had no choice but to approach Peter. And
That's
since
50
Peter knew
bucks.
that the man needed the card for the tournament and round 1 was about to start, he upcharged him. Others would say that Peter would lowball them when buying their cards online. But at the end of the day, though perhaps immoral, none of what he was doing was technically illegal, beyond, well, buying and selling at the venue. The bottom line is Peter needed more money to be able to constantly attend these majors because they were always held in a different city across the United States, and travel and accommodation can be pretty expensive. As his play continued, Peter quickly cemented himself as one of the best Lightsworn players in the world. A strategy reliant on self-milling, it would
Okay, it's not really that. Okay. The thing with light swarms is it's the mill kind of deck. You mill, you keep on sending cards to your graveyard and shit like that. But the other slight problem was when you were sitting there playing, milling them, people would add dark to chaos, what is it? All right, light swarms by itself was a problem, mostly because of the Judgment Dragon. But when people started adding chaos, they started mixing lights, dark and light, the chaos shit. Then that's it came a whole nother problem in itself.
trigger powerful effects in the graveyard to flood the field with monsters. The deck's signature boss, the Judgment Dragon, could only summon itself when 4 different Lightsworn names were in the graveyard, with its Day of Judgment ability wiping out all other cards on the field. But Peter's opponents complained that he always had the perfect mills, consistently hitting 4 names as early as the second turn, and constantly milling multiple copies of Wolf Lightsworn Beast, one of the deck's powerful methods to swing the game in favor. For it was essentially a free 2100 beat Peter, who brought itself back to the field. Though the deck could be pretty inconsistent due to the RNG factor associated with milling, in the hands of Peter Chang, the deck always seemed to perform exactly as he wanted it to. And with his devotion to the light, Peter would finish top 4 at Shonen Jump Championship Orlando and top 16 at Shonen Jump Championship Columbus. With his name now commonplace among the elite, everyone would agree that Peter was no doubt a skilled player. But while his accomplishments grew, so did an aspect of uncertainty surrounding his gameplay, which had now transcended his local community and became known to the world. Online chatter was abuzz on the popular forums at the time. One player would note, Peter Chang has swept multiple events with Lightsworn. It's statistically impossible to go 8+ rounds and not lose multiple times. Factor in Lightsworn's inconsistencies, and you've got someone who is obviously defying the system in some way here. To further my claim, he's been asked to change his sleeves during multiple regionals due to marked sleeves. In 3, he's been DQ'd in the top 8 of regionals before. His reputation would rapidly become known, with a chunk of the community calling him Cheater Chang, while others use the comedic spoonerism Cheater Pang. With each consecutive tournament that Peter attended, the forums would be abuzz with users following along for updates and potential drama. And boy, would there be drama. At the Shonen Jump Championship in Los Angeles, where after starting with a phenomenal 8-2 record and nearly locking himself into the top cut yet again with Lightsworn, Peter would suddenly be disqualified mid-round. Not explicitly for cheating, but rather for lying to a judge. You see, in competitive Yu-Gi-Oh!, infractions generally start with warnings. This is to give the player the benefit of the doubt for a genuine mistake, but also to ensure that players don't try to soft cheat by deliberately performing illegal plays or breaking policy to try and gain advantage. Therefore, multiple warnings or infractions would escalate into steeper punishment, with 2 warnings often granting the player a game loss. Now, apparently Peter had already received an infraction earlier in the tournament for having a marked sleeve in his side deck. But later when he was deck checked again in the tournament, that same sleeve in question was still present. Peter allegedly told the new judge that he had no prior warnings in an attempt to avoid receiving the upgraded penalty. But unfortunately for Peter, his statement would be fact-checked with the head judge, resulting in immediate disqualification for his dishonesty. Word of this quickly spread online like wildfire. The infamous Peter Chang was finally disqualified from a major event. Now, a pro player being disqualified from a tournament in the championship tier was already a rare occurrence. But factoring in Peter's scandalous background and everyone on the internet waiting for exactly this to happen, it certainly spilled the tea. Forums would reach peak traffic, with many flocking to hear the story and also to share their own personal anecdotes about Peter's gameplay. Now, you would think this is the end of the line for any regular Yu-Gi-Oh player, but unfortunately, Peter was not a regular player. In fact, this was only the beginning, because such an act of humiliation would only fuel Peter's revenge, igniting his thirst for redemption because he was so close to winning his first championship, and now he wanted to prove him.
Whoa. What's that? I just built a budgeting app in Base 44.
When you fail one time,
Peter just built an app.
Himself more than ever. Miraculously for Peter, luck would be on his side, for he would avoid any immediate punishment beyond disqualification from the event. Apparently, not even a disqualification from a major tournament would put a damper in Peter's shenanigans, because at the Shonen Jump Championships in Edison the following month, yes, during the well-known Edison format, Peter would be caught trying to add a card that was removed from the game back to his hand. But the judges simply gave him a game loss penalty instead of a disqualification because they didn't actually see it happen, and Peter argued that it was an accident. No surprises here. But just 4 months later, to the chagrin of the entire community, Peter Chang would pull off the unthinkable.
Don't tell me. No.
It's May 16th, 2010. Peter Chang has defied all expectations and once again made the top 16 of a championship. But it would only get better for him as he breezes through the top 8 and then the top 4, at long last landing himself in the championship final. And the crowd can't believe it. If Peter Chang wins, I'm learning how to cheat, says one poster online. And finally, when the smoke cleared, a man raises a trophy with one hand and clutches 3 elusive prize cards in the other. After years of grinding, Peter Chang has finally achieved a championship title by winning the Yu-Gi-Oh! Championship Series Washington. And not just any regular championship tournament, but the first ever Yu-Gi-Oh! Championship Series, a prestigious tournament that would replace the previous Shonen Jump Championships, featuring a set of new and elusive ultra-rare prize cards, the 3 Dark Lords. Dark Lord Superbia, Dark Lord Asmodeus, Asmodeus and Dark Lord Ida Ari, and they
The,
now
okay,
belong
the
to
only
Peter.
good
But instead of celebration,
okay, I will say the only good Dark Lord back then was really quite frank was Dark Lord Superbia, was because quite frank was okay. Okay, the only reason why Dark Lord Superbia was good back then was because when you special summon from the graveyard, you can special summon another fairy from I think it was like from the graveyard as well. And most people use that with what the fuck it was called uh that what's called Fortune Herald or wait no it was Herald of the Light. I think it was Herald of the Light. It's a ritual monster. The damn freaking card would just annoy. Okay, because what Herald of the Light did, it's a ritual monster. It's still, I'm sure it's still around. The damn thing is still around because it's still annoying as fuck. You discard a card and it negates freaking whatever the hell you want. It has to be a fairy monster though. You have to discard it. So it's annoying as fuck. But it's just it's a fine ritual monster, but it's annoying as fuck. But that's just me. But anyway, let's get back to because this is freaking gadgets. This looks like what I think is these are gadgets, and this is what was Mechanical Fortress, and this looks like ugly Jinzo Return.
Jinzo engine, but
Yeah.
it wasn't exactly the most competitive deck. In fact, it was regarded as a significantly weaker deck that paled in power compared to the existing
Oh,
X-Saber and
X
the newly
Sabers.
released
Okay, X Sabers and Infernities. Oh my goodness. If you was around, if Infernities was around, I swear to God, just having the Infernities was just annoying as fuck. Quite frank, was really just annoying as fuck. And X Sabers, uh, I used to hate X Sabers. Quite frank, I used to fucking hate X Sabers. But when they got that, when they got that, what synchro was it? I think it was like the level 12 synchro monster, or like it was level 10 or whatever. That's when I started liking freaking the X Sabers. Um, quite frank for me, I'm gonna tell you actually I'm not gonna keep talking um but I'm gonna say I hated this Infernities just because, okay, they just had a shitload of back row, and okay. They had a shitload of back row, and it was just empty their hand, quite like it was just empty your hand. Once they got their hand is completely fucking empty. That's when I would say the nightmare with Infernities begins. I mean they're already a pain in the ass, but when they get but when they have no cards in your hand, it just gets even fucking worse. It just annoying, really annoying little shits. They sit there freaking, oh, 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 I destroy a monster. Okay, I'm gonna burn you for 1600. Just cause I destroyed your monster and sent to the graveyard, I'm gonna burn you 1600. Or I
Infernity
think it was a
decks that were
thousand.
expected to dominate. His strategy was rather simple. The gadget monsters replaced themselves for free card advantage and
Yep.
fueled the Machine of Fortress, who could be summoned by discarding another
Yeah,
machine
there you
from
go.
the hand. Next, the Jinzo engine would supplement this, providing the only means of power for the deck to match the
It's
pace
not
of the newer
consistent though. That's the
strategies, who
thing.
had
It's not
nearly
consistent.
outdated it completely. It would enable him to play Future Fusion, one of the
But
strongest
with bad
cards ever
it is.
printed,
A
that
little
years
bit.
later would even have its effect nerfed. But at the time, it allowed him to fusion summon by using using resources directly from the deck instead of his hand and field, breaking the game mechanic completely. The monster wouldn't be summoned until the following turn, but that didn't matter because resolving a Future Fusion would allow Peter to dump all of his machine monsters to the graveyard if he declared a summon of the Chimera Tech Over Dragon, a boss monster that required Cyber Dragon and any number of machines as fusion material. This also meant he could dump 2 copies of Jinzo and 2 copies of Jinzo Returner from the deck to the graveyard. The baby Jinzos would then trigger, immediately reviving the 2 adult Jinzos, whose effects instantly kick in to negate all trap cards on the field, while presenting 4,800 damage on the board at the same time. From there, he could revive the Machina Fortresses from the graveyard that were also dumped there via Future Fusion, thanks to their special summoning conditions, to deal well over 8,000 damage in one single turn, and without any fear of staple disruptions like Mirror Force or Torrential Tribute. But the rest of the deck just wasn't very consistent and lacked significant combos beyond Future Fusion, which was also limited to 1 copy per deck at the time due to rampant abuse in the past. It was basically the deck's only unfair advantage, so to speak. In addition to the deck being pretty slow, it was also full of bad cards to draw, like Jinzo, which you would be less than ecstatic to see in your opening hand, for it required a sacrifice to summon. Even the gadget monsters were much weaker than the other monsters on the block, and he would have to power them up using support cards like Solidarity, while relying on trap cards to control the game at his pace. So needless to say that getting carried by 1 card to winning a 1,000-person tournament was pretty OP. Which brings us to the conundrum. Peter would have to hard draw the Future Fusion because it wasn't searchable, unless your name is Peter Chan. Because after his win, even more rumors exploded online, with some players at the event claiming that instead of drawing Future Fusion, Peter would search for it from his deck and add it directly to his hand when resolving the effects of his gadgets. Since the gadgets could add each other, rather than add the corresponding gadget and reveal it to his opponent as per the game policy, the story goes that Peter would add the Future Fusion from the deck to his hand face down by accident, say oopsies to the opponent, and then reveal a copy of another gadget that was already in his hand, telling them that that was a card he had searched. Other players would share similar anecdotes of sleight of hand when playing against Peter. Some accused him of deliberately testing illegal plays to see what he could get away with, and allegations of stacking while shuffling and using marked sleeves were again at the forefront. A few players even surmised that Peter may have been taking advantage of a ruling loophole. Though this was never explicitly proven, they would say that Peter may have utilized the effect of Baby Jinzo when it was sent to the graveyard for cost. You probably know by now, but Yu-Gi-Oh! Is an extremely complex game where card effects are taken extremely literally down to the exact word. And Jinzo Returner reads that when this card is sent to the graveyard, you can special summon 1 Jinzo from your graveyard. The keyword being when, which in Yu-Gi-Oh! Terms means that it can only be triggered at the exact time that the card is sent to the graveyard. For example, when sent there via Future Fusion or a card like Foolish Burial. Being sent to the graveyard is the last thing that has to happen in order for the effect to meet its activation timing. But in Yu-Gi-Oh! Costs take place before a card or a summon resolves. So if Jinzo Returner is sent to the graveyard to pay for the cost of a card, for example, being tributed for a tribute summon, then the last thing to happen is a tribute summon itself and not Jinzo Returner being sent to the graveyard. So the game would automatically skip the trigger timing and the player would be unable to activate the effect. And this is the exact ruling if Jinzo Returner is sent from the hand to the graveyard to fulfill the summoning cost for Machina Fortress. It wouldn't be able to activate because Machina Fortress's summon takes place immediately after the cost, therefore stiffing the activation timing of the Baby Jinzo. This being said, some players online would claim that Peter may have abused this throughout his tournament run. Since this was an obscure ruling that wasn't immediately obvious when reading the card at face value, it's possible that not every player would have known the implications. In the worst case scenario, with Peter taking a warning from the judge, if the opponent even bothered to call a judge in the first place. Surprisingly, most Yu-Gi-Oh! Players are a lot more chill and reserved when it comes to calling judges compared to other trading card games that are out there.
You're kidding! Judge.
Oh, Biggie. Oh, wow.
Now, the R&D team would later patch this loophole by rewarding optional when effects to if instead, therefore allowing future cards to activate even when sent to the graveyard by cost in order to avoid abuse and confusion. But despite the rumors, no one could explicitly validate the claims against Peter. While most of the community completely disregarded Machina Gadgets as a viable contender because it was Peter Chang that won with them, there were a few voices that weren't fully convinced that Peter had cheated because there wasn't any hard evidence of it. I mean, in hindsight, it does seem a
Fair.
little ridiculous that Peter's opponents would be okay with him searching his deck for a card face down, adding it to his hand, shuffling his
down.
hand, and then showing them a random card from their hand that was the gadget. Especially at a competitive championship rules enforcement level, because in Yu-Gi-Oh, any card that's searched from the deck to the hand has to be revealed to the opponent. Now, perhaps Peter may have used other sleight of hand to make this possible, but it's more than likely that this was just a meme that snowballed and spiraled out of control online because of Peter's history of making illegal plays. But on the other hand, to add some more suspicions, it was also the first major tournament after the release of the Shining Darkness, a powerful set that forever changed the landscape of the game. It would bring power creep to an entirely new level that was never witnessed before. With the support for X-Saber and the highly anticipated release of Infernity, a deck that defied any prior sense of Yu-Gi-Oh logic. Previously, gaining card advantage and resources required setup, often taking multiple turns and being earned as payoffs through difficult means. But the Infernity deck was highly explosive and could overwhelm the field with near endless resources out of nowhere, granting the user the ability to set up a near unbreakable end board or just attack and win in one single turn. The deck's gimmick relied on the user having no cards in their hand, and once the requirement was met, all of the effects became live. Their signature card, the Infernity Archfiend, could search the deck for any Infernity card when it was special summoned. Infernity Necromancer would then revive the Infernity Archfiend, and 3 copies of Infernity Launcher could revive both Archfiend and Necromancer, creating a mini loop as Archfiend would then search for another copy of Infernity Launcher to reborn over and over again. Built-in tuner monsters allowed the deck to summon a plethora of synchro monsters like the Mistworm to spin back the opponent's field, while Infernity Break could disrupt the opponent's cards. As if this wasn't enough, they also released a TCG exclusive card in the form of Infernity Barrier. This was an in-archetype Solemn Judgment that could negate any opposing card, making the deck complete overkill. X-Saber, on the other hand, was already an existing powerful deck in the metagame. Double X-Saber Golems could easily loop the opponent's hand for multiple cards. Cold Wave and Trap Stun could lock the opponent from using traps, while Double X-Saber Hyeonlei could then destroy up to 3 of them. Their ace main deck monster, the Rescue Cat, could swarm the field and even enable crazy degenerate turn 1 combos. But the Shining Darkness would introduce another TCG exclusive, this time for the X-Sabers as Double X-Saber Dark Soul, who allowed the player to search for an X-Saber monster during the end phase of the turn that it was sent to the graveyard. The exact card that the deck lacked for follow-up and resource management, because now we had a body that we could synchro away while getting a search in the end phase. The other TCG exclusive, Double X-Saber Bogart Knight, allowed the player to special summon another X-Saber monster from their hand, easily placing 2 bodies onto the field to enable Double X-Saber Fall Troll. There was just one problem. A search is not exactly the term I should use for Double X-Saber Dark Soul's effect. You see, this was the first card that was worded in such a way where the search would be delayed, causing uncertainty about how it would work. Previously, cards like Sangan would trigger immediately when they were sent from the field to the graveyard, and we didn't have any precedent for something that would search in the end phase. Therefore, it was left to the judge's interpretation, and they would rule that Dark Soul triggered immediately when he was sent from field to the graveyard, meaning that the same copy of Dark Soul could be resurrected and sent there yet again, accumulating multiple searches off of one single copy. Though this would later be overruled years later, at the time it would push X-Sabers to even greater heights than ever imaginable. And armed with heavy graveyard disruption like the DD Crow and the anti-Dark Floodgate, Consecrated Light, the deck could go toe-to-toe with Infernity, resulting in a stalemate of power, with 7 X-Saber and 7 Infernity decks both making the top 32 cut of the tournament. So you can probably see why it was borderline impossible for Machina Gadgets, a deck that had received 0 new support from this game-breaking brand new set, to defeat multiple X-Saber and multiple Infernity decks across 15 rounds to win this tournament. And in the finals of this event, 7 judges were watching the match from every possible angle to ensure that Peter Chang did not pull any shenanigans. I'm not even joking. This was actually what happened. Yeah, they really wanted to cover their bases. And with the pressure on, he would defeat YPFL Stephen Harris, an Infernity player who, interestingly enough, Peter knew was not playing the Chimera Tech Fortress Dragon. Fortress Dragon was a direct counter to any machine deck, for it was a unique fusion monster that could be made without polymerization. Rather, the card introduced the concept of contact fusion, allowing the user to simply send away the fusion materials from the field to the graveyard as long as they were all present on the field. It was specifically printed as a countermeasure to the advent of powerful machine decks that had plagued the game over the past couple of years. And its fusion materials would require Cyber Dragon plus any number of machine monsters from either side of the
Yeah.
field. This meant that a regular player could even utilize Peter's own Cyber Dragon, alongside his other machine monsters,
Yeah.
to wipe his entire board on a whim. But at the very last minute before submitting his deck list, Harris decided to play an additional Synchro monster over Chimera Tech, theorizing
Oh.
that nobody would be crazy enough to play Machina Gadgets at this event.
What a
But
fool.
evidently, Peter was crazy enough. This meant that he was able to keep his Cyber Dragon on the field without any fear of his machines being wiped away by one single fusion summon, adding additional pressure to his board, ultimately contributing
He
to
should
his
have kept
victory,
it.
alongside the fact that Harris somehow drew the worst possible hands. The forums went absolutely crazy. Peter Chang, who everyone thought to be an egregious cheater, had won a championship event, and with the last deck
Ridiculous.
anyone would have possibly imagined. Players had already
Gadgets.
begun buying out X-Saber and Infernity cards overnight, with the expectation that one of these two decks would easily sweep the event. But they were wrong. He had to have cheated, said the community, who completely dismissed Peter's victory with such an unconventional strategy. But outside of the allegations of potential misconduct,
I mean,
many
he won
players also
legally.
brought forward anecdotes about Peter's overall character, with some claiming that he was highly egoistical and erratic, often rushing his opponents into making misplays, angle shooting, or carelessly grabbing their cards without permission. Others
wow.
even hated his voice. It seemed like everyone had a reason to dislike the man, even more so now that he held a championship title. But regardless of whether or not Peter cheated, the general consensus seemed to agree that he was highly annoying to play
Wow.
against. In a Reddit thread titled, "What's the worst player you ever dueled?" on the r/Yu-Gi-Oh subreddit, a hefty amount of replies were about
Years
Peter
ago.
Chang. It seemed that a lot of players on the competitive circuit had witnessed his shenanigans at one point or another. With the spotlight illuminating his
Damn.
elevated notoriety, players began to complain about his apparent invulnerability. It seemed that no matter what penalties or disqualifications Peter received, he would receive no further suspensions. "I don't cheat. It's just I'm good and you're not," he would proclaim online.
I don't know
But
about
some
that one.
players decided to take matters into their own hands. You see,
Yeah.
at a regional tournament just a week after his championship win, Peter would get jumped by a group of rare hunters trying to steal the coveted prize cards that he had brought with him
He
to
got
show
jumped?
off. But luckily for him, he would narrowly avoid disaster. And if you didn't believe that Yu-Gi-Oh could be serious business, well, now you know. As a result, Peter would take a
Wow.
low profile over the next couple of weeks, but quickly found
Yeah,
himself
poor guy
back into the
jumped.
swing of things to test for the upcoming national championship, the largest tournament of the year that would qualify a handful of players for the prestigious World Championship. But only 2 months later, things would finally devolve for this devoted duelist. In the year of 2010,
It's wrong for me to eat
A poor
Cinnamon
guy
Toast Crunch,
jumped.
considering I'm also
He
Cinnamon
got
Toast
jumped.
Crunch.
I mean, it's not funny, but yeah.
But ever since my first
I guess so. It's the price for for somewhat cheating, I guess. And the though, okay, maybe I shouldn't say cheating, but leading people to believe that you're a dirty, dirty cheater. Mm.
Peter would attend the Yu-Gi-Oh! National Championship, and inside of the convention hall during check-in on Friday, he would sit down at a table with friends to work on their deck list and collectively theorize what the best tech cards would be. But as they lost themselves in the conversation, a judge suddenly tapped Peter on the shoulder, and at that moment, he would inform Peter that he was banned from organized play, effective immediately. Apparently as a further consequence of his original disqualification from Shonen Jump Los Angeles earlier that year, but also as an additional penalty in regards to another disqualification from a regional tournament that took place at some point between his championship victory and the Yu-Gi-Oh! Nationals. But the rules
Damn.
committee would have to confer with their higher-ups to determine whether or not a suspension was warranted. And though it took some time, they had finally come to the green light to ban Peter Chang from organized play. After being caught on multiple different occasions with suspicious shuffling, conspicuous sleeves, performing illegal
Right.
plays, and numerous penalties and multiple disqualifications, Peter's guardian angel had done all it could, and the consequences had finally caught up to him. And at that very moment, Peter would be forced to leave not only the venue, but also the game itself for the next few years. Understandably, he was completely crushed. This was a devastating blow to a large
Yes.
part of his life that he devoted so much time and effort to. But if there's at least one takeaway
can
from the
play
story so
online.
far, we know that Peter was extremely determined. And even a forceful setback like this would not stop him.
Play online.
5
Oh
years
no.
later, Peter Chang would return with an even greater vengeance.
Oh
By
boy.
now, the game was a lot more popular, and events were getting way more players than before. And at the same time, not only had the power creep completely changed the game itself, but there were also complex online simulators where the
Necros.
best players could practice,
Oh
competitive
boy.
articles and guides available online, and less secrets that were held by the inner
But you know
circles of the pro
Necros,
players. It was a completely
boy, oh
new
boy,
generation of competitive
you
Yu-Gi-Oh! Online forums were slowly being drained of their culture as a trend towards social media and Facebook
now
groups had
just
facilitated
just
discussion and
think now,
theory,
people.
pushing
I'm
even
just
the
gonna say
average
this.
player at the time.
Okay, just think. Okay, most of these decks at the time, really quite frank, you are looking to spend hundreds, hundreds of dollars on these decks. I mean, like did and quite frank, it's okay. It's like okay, I would say it's like horse racing. I mean, yo, I mean, it's okay, yeah, okay, yeah. I would say it's like horse racing. You play, you every single season, probably a new horse comes out or whatever, or you bet big fucking money on the horse, and you know, it's your if you're gonna win, you gotta play and all that shit, but it's a risk. I mean, and quite frankly, just okay, people will spend like six to seven, $800, maybe 1,000 for a deck every single year, or maybe a couple of them, or at least maybe 2 to 3 years. I've quite frank, I quite frank, I know a person. Well, I used to know a person who spent, I would say, five, maybe four, or two, three, $400 like every few months for a deck. Yeah, but I mean, but this was like this was online for online person. It wasn't real, but they just told me the story, or whatever. So yeah.
To one that would have dominated the scene only 5 years prior. But Peter, of course, was still following the game even during his ban, and now that he could enter tournaments and sanctioned events once again, he quickly adapted. Defeating thousands of players, he would make top 32 of both YCS Columbus and the National Championship in 2015 with his new favorite deck, the Teller Knights, a
uh,
strategy whose signature monster ironically searched for another copy of a Teller Knight monster from his deck, just like the gadgets. Yeah,
uh,
Peter seemed to love cards that would search his deck. It was almost a combination of his two favorite decks in the past,
that's
Lightsworn and Gadgets. His confidence with the Teller Knights would also propel him to win the Ultimate Duelist series, an exclusive tournament comprising of the nation's top-ranked players, granting him the championship belt and also 2 buys for the first 2 rounds of all foreseeable tournaments
wanna
to
be
come.
WWE.
This was a prestigious achievement that only the upper echelon of duelists had ever attained, once again engraving Peter Chang into competitive Yu-Gi-Oh! History. It quickly became obvious that Peter Chang was once again a force to be reckoned with, though
Damn.
whether due to pure skill was less than debatable, at least according to the general opinion online. His explosive resurrection was certainly less than the community had anticipated, but at the same time, it reinvigorated the excitement of having a scandalous player in the
Oh,
relatively
GX.
calm competitive Yu-Gi-Oh! Scene. And in the following year, Peter Chang would find continued success, landing himself in the top 16 of YCS Columbus, again with Teller Knights, and in the top 32 of
Personally, I love GX. Quite frank, Yu-Gi-Oh! GX. Uh, though quite frank, I wish it somewhat ended better. Quite frank, though. I mean, okay, Japanese side. I mean, I don't think the English. I don't think it. They translated the most of the English part for the for GX. I mean, they probably did, but I mean, it's probably shitty for all I know.
YCS Providence with Cosmo. It was without a doubt that the man had a compelling mind when it came to the game of Yu-Gi-Oh! While other players experimented with different options, Peter was an early pioneer of utilizing just one singular deck across multiple events until mastery, a notion that would become popular years later. His core theory and methodology within the game was definitely well ahead of its time, but unsurprisingly, Peter's tactics would once again catch up with him, and at the start of the 2017 season, Peter would be disqualified and banned yet again for an extended period of time. With his legacy frozen, the community would largely forget about Peter Chang once again, but nothing would prepare them for what would happen next. If you're enjoying this video, I just want to let you know that there's a lot more content like this in the horizon, so thanks for hitting that subscribe button and liking the video.
I'm just saying, these are just so...
Both of these monsters cannot be on the field right now.
I'm just saying, like, I'm just saying, cause, just saying. I'm just saying.
Yo, he's making
I'm
excuses.
just saying. I'm just saying the moves are so basic. Oh my freaking god.
Where's my healer?
In 2017, competitive Yu-Gi-Oh! Had grown to be extremely popular, but in the competitive scene, there was a pressing issue. Players had slowly become disillusioned with the way that the game was being run officially. Formal rulings like for XX Saber Dark Soul were often delayed for months or years, because Konami Japan overseas was in charge of setting up these rulings and giving context to the judges, but for whatever reason, they just never did. Tournaments also failed to distribute any cash prizing, providing only prize cards and playmats instead.
Oh, cute Minerva. But quite okay. I'm gonna say, okay. I would say, like, okay, for like the rules and all that stuff. Quite frank. Okay, I used to play online and all that stuff. A Yu-Gi-Oh game. What was it called? Um, I forgot the fuck. It wasn't. It wasn't Yu-Gi-Oh online like that is now. Um, it was what is it? It was Yu-Gi-Oh Duel. It was Yu-Gi-Oh Duel Monsters Genesis. I think that's if you know if you know what the hell that game is, quite frank. Uh, I doubt most people know what the hell know that, but I used to play there. Um, I quite frank, I'm gonna honest with you, I fucking sucked the hell out of it. Because quite frank, what I would do is make decks, quite frank, that quite frank, I really shouldn't be sitting there making. I really shouldn't be sitting there making at all. You know, um, but quite frank, I someone just made decks like really to quite frank to have fun with it. Not for my own personal fun. I wasn't really trying to, win, like all that. You know, I wanted to win, but I was like, if I win, it'd be great. But, I personally don't expect to win, but at the same time, I'm gonna try to win. But, mm, mm,
which was hardly a consolidation considering a lot of the players were spending hundreds and thousands of dollars to travel and accommodate themselves for these major tournaments. Not to mention the other popular card games at the time all had lucrative cash prizes. Whereas in Yu-Gi-Oh, making even the top 16 of a 2,000-man tournament would mean you get a felt playmat and some booster packs as the sole prizing. The ridiculousness of which would expand into top 8 with players receiving an Xbox 360 when the Xbox One had already been out for nearly 1 full year. So basically, to earn your money back or to be profitable, so to speak, as a professional Yu-Gi-Oh player, you would have to make top 3 at the very minimum in order to get a copy of the prize card that could be sold for significant value on the secondary market. So needless to say, a lot of the players had become slowly more and more disillusioned and were pissed off. But a large and popular Texas game store named Ultra Reality Games, or ARG for short, took advantage of the situation and launched their own circuit of tournaments. And you guessed it, with cash money on the line. online. Much like the Star City game circuit for Magic the Gathering, these events were pushed by many pro players who partnered with the brand and boasted better policies, up-to-date rulings, and a generous lump sum should you win or place well in the tournament. They would put a focus on content and social media, live streaming each event, and often with commentary from prominent players on the mic, providing a feel that was akin to that of early Smash Brothers tournaments like Genesis or grassroots tournaments in the FGC. Feature matches were chosen by the audience with a focus specifically on well-known players, and tournament records of these players and their storylines were placed at the forefront of coverage. Rivalries and grudge matches were common, top-notch content that would have never been featured on an official Yu-Gi-Oh channel.
Okay, yeah, we'll play $500. Let's go. All right, you gonna talk shit? You can talk shit to my face. All right? And I'll play that shit. So Tennessee beating this motherfucker's ass for $500. You better sure you bring that shit.
But most importantly, these tournaments generated immense hype for the game, which was never before seen. It would be the perfect stomping grounds for Peter, for he was otherwise suspended from a
Okay, that's some hard, fight, okay, that's the type where, quite frank, where that's like a prize match. I would sit there and say, I would say of, hey, oh, y'all two gonna fight? Okay, let's put all the cameras and shit on there. But that's just me.
Championship Series Springfield 2017. It's round 5 and Peter is currently 5-0. He sits down to meet face-to-face with Fraser Smith, a pro player with a championship win himself, alongside dozens of other accolades. Fraser had previously won YCS Atlanta using a unique Gravekeeper strategy during a graveyard-based plant synchro metagame, but he had since taken a break for some time and was just returning to the game. The tournament format would revolve around Zodiac, a powerful engine that could be played as its own pure deck or splashed into other strategies. They would completely break the Xyz mechanic, which previously allowed the player to summon out an extra deck monster by stacking 2 or more monsters with the same levels on top of each other. But with the Zodiacs, the extra deck monsters could be overlaid on top of one single monster. It was textbook power creep at its finest. Zodiac Broadbow could search for another Zodiac monster from the deck, while Zodiac Trident was an endboard piece that could destroy a face-up card during either player's turn. Now this of course already generated unreal advantage from just one single monster, being able to search for a card to replace itself and then also destroy a card on your turn and another card on the opponent's turn at the minimum. But it gets even better. You see, their signature monster, the Zodiac Rapier, could special summon 2 more copies of itself from the deck whenever it was overlaid as a material. The new copies of Rapier could then be overlaid into any other rank 4, with Daigusto Emerald being the premium choice, for it could then recycle back the Zodiac Rapiers to draw a card and allow for the Rapier loop to be conducted again on the next turn. While Fraser utilized a pendulum Zodiac strategy with Metaphors, Peter would instead combine his Zodiacs with the Infernoid engine. It seems that Peter would be nostalgic about prior decks that he'd seen success with, for just like the Lightsworns, the Infernoids were heavily mill reliant. They could resurrect themselves from the graveyard by banishing other Infernoids, and had explosive effects that could wipe the entire field, while negating either a spell or trap card in the case of a Noku, or a monster effect with Deviati. But the Zodiacs meshed really well into this strategy, because the Rapier combo could end on Bujinte Kagutsuchi, a rank 4 who could mill 5 cards from the top of the deck. So imagine being able to search a Zodiac monster, pop up to 2 cards, and also mill 5 cards from the top of your deck thanks to one lone monster. That's how broken the Zodiac engine was.
I would want to get back into it. The last, if I remember, the last deck that I have, quite frank, I have it on Yu-Gi-Oh! Master Duel, is freaking, what is it? It's the Dragon Maidens. Quite frank, that's the only deck. Oh, what the hell? If only this was a console game. I doubt it. I doubt this is a console game. Yeah, there's no way in hell this is a console game. No way in hell. It's too good.
But that's not all, because the deck also had access to one of the strongest in-engine cards ever printed, and also very much alike Peter's favorite card, the Future Fusion. You see, just like Future Fusion, Void Imagination let the user fusion summon by using monsters from their deck, as long as the opponent controlled a monster that was special summoned from the extra deck. This would be used to fusion summon the Infernoid Tiara, who could be made using any number of Infernoid monsters, meaning just like the Chimeratech Overdragon, the user would effectively send all of the Infernoid names from their deck to the graveyard, which of course could be brought back using their own effects. Upon summon, Infernoid Tiara would allow both players to send the top 3 cards of their deck to the graveyard, and also 3 cards from the extra deck to the graveyard as well, allowing Peter to send copies of Elder Entity Entis to pop a free card on the field, Cyframe Lord Omega to disrupt the opponent's graveyard, or just additional copies of Tiara to serve as fodder to banish from the graveyard to resurrect the other Infernoids. An unfathomable level of advantage from one single card, meaning just like Future Fusion, if Void Imagination resolved, the game was effectively over on the spot. The Infernoid Zodiac deck had everything that Peter liked in the past, from milling to activating Future Fusion. But the downside, of course, was having to play Infernoid monsters who really aren't that appealing to draw on their own. But here's where the deck had an edge. It could take advantage of that grass looks greener, one of the strongest cards in the history of the game. Grass would allow the user to mill cards from the top of their deck equal to the difference in their deck size and the opponent's. Since the minimum deck count was 40, most players would play exactly this number to maximize the chances of drawing the strongest cards in their deck. With Grass, however, the player could easily max their deck count to 60, meaning a guaranteed mill for at least 20 cards against most opponents that were playing 40, or even more cards if the opponent went first and had already thinned their deck via searching. Resolving Grass would fill the graveyard with a plethora of Infernoids and also Fairy Tale Snow, a monster with an on-demand quick effect that summoned itself back by banishing any 7 cards from the graveyard, just like Snow White and the 7 Dwarfs. Upon summon, Snow was a disruption as it flipped an opposing monster face down. And for this reason, with Grass being so overpowered, the deck also played 3 copies of Left Arm Offering, a card that can search for any spell card in your deck, including Grass, but at the steep cost of banishing the player's entire hand. And game 1 would start with Peter winning the die roll, activating Left Arm Offering, only to discard his entire hand to the graveyard instead of banishing it. His very first action of the game was an illegal play that was so egregiously illegal that it's honestly kind of surprising. The card itself says banished. If it discarded, it would be way too broken, especially with a graveyard-based deck that wants to mill. Peter's excuse later on would be that he had only picked up the deck 5 minutes prior to the tournament and his friend had made the deck completely for him, even though it was round 5 and both players were undefeated. On top of this, he did this in a feature match that was live streamed in 4K HD to thousands of people around the world. But what was more shocking was the fact that neither Fraser nor the judge would immediately catch this. Though in Fraser's defense, he did mention that he was on hiatus and took a long time break, so he didn't really know all of the cards to the exact wire. Of course, the chat at the time would go completely bonkers, having caught the error and attempting to notify the commentators and the staff. Though some time would pass before someone finally caught wind of it, so play would continue as normal, with Peter activating the search copy of Grass, now milling a large chunk of his deck, which surprisingly lacked a chunk of Infernoid names. In fact, it was probably one of the worst possible mills. But he would be able to bring back an Infernoid Deviati by banishing the few 3 names that he did have in the graveyard, including at least one that he happened to discard with Left Arm Offering, meaning that the first illegal play had now created a second illegal play. Play passes over to Fraser, who then normal summons a copy of Eccentric Archfiend, now threatening the Deviati. So Peter is forced to banish 7 cards from his graveyard to resurrect the Fairy Tale Snow and flip face down the Archfiend Eccentric. But as Fraser lays down his next 2 cards, the head judge sits down at the table, having been alerted from the Twitch chat that something fishy, to say the least, had occurred earlier in the game.
Oh, you have to banish your hand? He discarded his hand.
Oh, I discarded my hand.
Oh, crap.
Yeah.
Neither Fraser nor Peter can remember the original contents of Peter's hand, so the judges have no choice but to huddle together and talk it over.
New TheraBreath toothpaste powers up your routine.
Time to mix and match.
I would have just said, okay, let's just
when I started my record label,
let's just
the business
halt
side
the
of
door
things,
right there and say,
taxes,
look, let's
finances,
get the hell out
definitely felt
After a few minutes of heavy deliberation, the judges return to the table to inform the players that the game state is now irreparable because so much has happened since Peter discarded his hand. Peter argues that it's his first time playing the deck and he had no idea, and even asks for them to rewind the stream to try and piece together their hands so play can be rewinded, but at this point it's kind of hard to do that when a bajillion cards have been milled and an entire turn has passed.
It's going to be a procedural error for both players, a warning for Frazier, and a game loss for you. As you do gain mass advantage from not banishing your hand there.
Should have just said something earlier. I mean, it's just right here.
I mean, to be honest,
No.
a game loss is
getting.
A game loss is being generous.
Something that happens like this. I could be taking you over to a table and talking to you right now, but I'm not, because I don't think
So
it was
this is-
intent. I think it was just accidental.
Instead of being grateful to the head judge, who had given Peter the minimum possible penalty, as he didn't believe that Peter deliberately made the illegal play, a salty Peter complains that the table judge should have caught his illegal play earlier and not waited until Fraser actually drew his card for turn. Even though it was his own fault in the first place that the illegal play even happened.
What an ass. He's basically getting away with
Earlier.
it.
But we,
You know what I'm saying?
no one at this table knew what that.
Yeah, I'm saying you just said something earlier, not let it go to your turn and then say something.
What?
Don't be mean, Peter.
No, I'm just saying.
I understand. Don't be mean.
Wow.
Just saying. If they had said it earlier, we could have fixed
Absolutely.
that.
Peter receives a game loss penalty, so he's now down 0-1 in the best of 3. The community goes absolutely crazy. Twitch chat, Reddit, Facebook groups are all once again talking about Peter Chang. Cheater Pang had returned.
What are they saying? Oh, great. This is gonna look bad.
Yeah.
Always is.
There's some uncomfortable silence as the two players side deck for the next game, with Peter opting to go first since he lost. He looks at his hand for a minute, pondering, then activates Zodiac Barrage to special summon a Zodiac Rapier from his deck, commencing the Rapier combo by overlaying into Borbo, then Tiger Mortar, detaching Boar so he can special summon a second copy of Rapier from the deck via its own effect. Standard plays, of course. He then proceeds further into the combo, overlaying Broadbow over Tiger Mortar, resetting the first Rapier's effect so it can be used to special summon a third copy from his deck. But as he goes through his deck for the other Rapier, he shortcuts the other effect of Zodiac Broadbow, who can detach a material to search for a Zodiac monster. Except Peter completely forgets to detach a material for the cost of this effect. Illegal play number 3 of this match. This also makes it so he only has 2 monsters in his graveyard, which stiffs his next play as he's not allowed to legally use the effect of his Daigusto Emerald to shuffle back 3 monsters from the graveyard into the deck, since there's only 2 monsters in the graveyard at the time of the activation.
You don't have enough targets. You have to have.
Oh, right. I'm sorry. Yeah, how the fuck did I fuck that up? Give me a second.
Yeah, what you do wrong, Peter? What did you do?
Yeah,
wrong? This combo always ends with Daigusto Emerald. How did you mess this up?
Yeah, what the fuck happened?
Illegal play number 4. Now, I genuinely want to believe that Peter made an honest mistake here, because it's certainly not in his favor if he can't resolve the Daigusto Emerald to draw the free card. But it seems like he initially caught himself when he goes to detach and realizes that it's an illegal action. But then he tries to go through with it again before the judge stops him. So take that for what you will. Now, at this point, both Peter and his opponent are confused and are wondering what the heck he just did, because the current game state makes absolutely 0 sense.
I'm so done with this game. I don't want to play anymore. I don't want to play anymore. I'm done. I want to go home. I just want to go home. I have no idea what just happened.
What should have been an extremely linear and standard combo line has somehow been fudged, and the numbers are just not adding up. As Peter mutters to himself, he proceeds to activate Void Banishment to try and search for Void Feast, a trap card that strengthens his end board and would summon out multiple Infernoids during the opponent's turn, all while asking himself what the hell he just did wrong. But little does he know, he's about to make illegal play number 5, though we'll get back to this in a second. At this moment, the table judge points out that he hadn't detached from his Broadbow for the effect of Rapier earlier, something that's still easily fixable, though technically at a warning for Peter, which the judge forgets to give him.
Chat told me to remind you to detach for something. Detach for bullet search. Oh, I guess it was that. You probably were supposed to detach for that.
Okay, alright. So, that's like, wait, something happened. That's why.
Something went wrong.
Yes.
To make things even more confusing, Peter then asks the judge if he still has to activate the Void Banishment, or if they can rewind to him shuffling and drawing a card first.
So do I even still need to do this first? Because I was originally gonna do that.
Oh god, I don't want to play anymore. Don't ask me anything.
All right.
Do you know what I'm saying?
What happened?
I think I was supposed to detach.
What's between you, God, can this not be my life right now?
I'm still gonna make this move anyway.
I just want to play you.
Hold on. Don't make any moves.
Okay,
yet.
okay.
Peter decides that the outcome is the same anyways, so he proceeds with his next play.
Yes, just stay here. Just saying.
Yo, please.
Peter overlays for
Nervous-
Zodiac
the
Trident
nervous
and then
laugh.
tributes the Daigusto Emerald to summon out Vanity's Fiend, a powerful card that he brought in from his side deck that locks his opponent out from special summoning. As if this
Great.
wasn't enough, he then passes his turn and flips up the anti-spell fragrance, locking the opponent completely out of any spell cards during their turn. With
Yo,
the Void
so
Beast poised to
fucking
summon out 3
salty
Infernoids
right here.
during Fraser's turn, and the Vanity's Fiend preventing him from summoning any monsters, this is effectively an unbreakable end board that should be an automatic win for Peter. Even worse for Fraser is the fact that he drew his one of in the form of Speedroid Takam Tomborg, a useless
Ooh.
engine piece that you'd never want to draw. While Fraser would have probably scooped up his cards immediately against any other player, in the back of his head, he still knew that he was playing against Peter Chang. And if the first game was any indication, anything can happen when you're playing against Peter Chang. And the longer that you stay in the game, the more likely it is that he might have made an illegal play, which he did. Because a judge suddenly pauses the game yet again.
So, why can't he summon Dragon?
That's all Jack said. He cannot summon Dragon, so as soon as he conditions that. Oh god, what is happening now?
Yeah, Void
Oh,
Vanish.
is it because you activated that card? Does that card do something?
Yeah, you can't normal special summon monsters other than Infernoids.
So this is why I was supposed to do this first. So, like, this is unbelievable.
He's mad getting chat. He's getting caught. He's getting caught.
I'm done. I just what is happening?
Someone in the chat had noticed that Peter cheated yet again by summoning non-Infernoid monsters after resolving his Void Vanishment. You see, Void Vanishment has a line of text at the very
At the
end
bottom.
that says for the rest of the turn after you resolve this card's effect, you cannot summon any monsters except for Infernoids. And Fraser even picked up this card to read earlier, but it has so much text that it was just easy to miss.
Yeah, you can discard one card, add one void from your deck, except okay.
Yeah, they're
also,
too much
you know,
text
the rest
cards.
of the turn, okay.
So in this very basic combo line, Peter had effectively messed up everything. He was supposed to summon out the Zodiac Trident and Vanity's Fiend before activating the Void Vanishment as the final layer of his combo, so the monster lock wouldn't matter. But he didn't.
So you can't even summon Vanity's Fiend?
No.
Yeah.
Oh my god.
Yeah,
I
he
told
fucked.
you this was supposed to be done first, and then this is supposed to be at the end. But you know,
Oh yeah, he can't do this or this.
Yeah,
He can't do anything.
either of
I'm
that.
so
that's what
done.
I'm saying.
fucked
This
up
is supposed to be
everything.
done first.
Yo, he
and
can't
then
do
like
either
he
one
said,
of
I
these
had to
things.
disarm.
So your whole field is illegal.
I think he's supposed to be activated last. I knew that. Oh my freaking god.
This is the most.
We went from a game one, game lost to.
Oh my
procedural.
god.
And then.
But it's
then
not
you
like
went-
it's intentional.
Okay, so you didn't even somehow you pulled off activating an XC without detaching and didn't get a procedural. error.
That's why I said like, where did it go wrong? Like this happens
Yeah,
all the
he went to
time.
go for that Ghost
And
Knight
now,
roll.
Right.
and now you have Dryden Vanities, which is a procedural area.
After
You do know where this is going, Peter.
But I'm just saying, like, it's not intentional. Like, you know, these moves are just. I don't.
Yo,
I know, but I'm just saying, these are just so.
Both of these monsters cannot be on the field right now.
Like,
Right,
Peter,
yeah, no.
you know where a procedural error goes after. A
I
procedural
know,
game
but I'm
loss, right?
saying, like, this was. I don't know how it walked up to this. You know what I'm saying? Like, this is so. It's so.
Peter realizes this, but has little to say beyond
It's so basic, and
The
it's
end
like
result- the end-
these moves are just so basic. They're not like.
Pretty
And
much
these are just like
outgoing.
basic moves from these
Someone
moves
talking
now.
Tomboy.
Well, I'm glad I know the context
The
now.
most common basic moves, and it's like.
Then why are you messing
No,
them
I'm
up?
just saying, cause
the chat and the head judge were really unamused. In
Yeah.
addition to this, Peter had gone away scot-free without receiving even a warning for his illegal plays earlier in the match. He doesn't really have anything to defend himself with besides his new catchphrase.
these moves are just like the basic moves, you know? Oh my
And you
freaking god!
fucking
And
them
it's
up.
just a basic turn one move. It's not even like no, but it's so
And I'm not going to
basic.
DQ you.
I'm just saying the moves are so basic,
And
and
that's
it's
what
just
you should be happy.
the moves are just so basic. It's unreal of what's happening.
Because they were technically
they're
basic moves,
basic,
but
and
he
they're
kept
fu-
repeating
and
himself
fucked him up.
as if there was some sliver of hope that the judges would let him rewind and actually do the combo the right way.
It's not like there was any interaction with this move.
Allegedly.
Basic moves.
Uh-huh.
This was like. It's not even like there was any interact. Basically, I don't know where it went wrong.
I think he went wrong getting into the car this morning.
I keep hearing basic, and I'm like, I feel like he's awake already.
He's like, it's so basic, it's so basic.
Either way, the match is over.
And it's just a basic.
Yeah, the match is over.
It's not even like this was like. It's not even like there was any interaction in the game. Oh my freaking god.
Where's my healer? I need my healer. Oh, this is so ugly. I can't.
You've actually left
I'm just saying.
At one point, he would seemingly get annoyed and would even proceed to blame the judges.
Because he keeps coming over and saying, I'm just saying, but you guys are not saying, and why are you not saying it after the move is done? And he's like not saying anything either.
Because I'm still learning what these do.
One more.
Double spotted.
GG, boys.
Behind this advisor is the power of Vanguard's institutional quality bond funds.
Saying that they didn't point out his illegal moves, and they were distracting him by walking back and forth to his table to check on the game.
This is unreal. I hope you know. I just hope you know. I'm letting you know. Oh my god. He literally did nothing. And like no one is like saying this after the move's already done.
Yo, he's getting so salty.
You're a real help, by the way.
So salty.
If it was anybody else, literally, that would have not had slide.
Yo,
Just
he's
saying.
so fucking salty.
I am simply going to go to the bathroom.
This is actually just insane.
The stream chat went
So
absolutely
salty.
crazy. Fraser had only played a total of 4 Yu-Gi-Oh cards, only to win the match 2-0, including a game that was basically unwinnable.
Yo, this has to be crazy on stream. I just know.
I know.
I just know the stream has been going crazy.
You're
I've literally
sitting here
drawn
and
2
you're not
hands.
saying it. That's why I
Game
said
1,
just sit
Summon
here.
Archfiend Eccentric. Game 2, Summon Talking Tomboy. And this is all I've done in the last 30
Oh my
minutes.
freaking god.
Actual hard evidence of Peter's shenanigans had finally unraveled to the world in front of thousands of people watching.
Yeah.
The legendary moment would forever be embedded in Yu-Gi-Oh history. Peter's defense? It was apparently his first time ever playing the deck, and Peter's friend had helped them build the
just my
deck
first
before the
time.
tournament.
My first
What
time
happens
too.
when you tell somebody build you a deck?
Alright.
They have no idea how to play it. Unbelievable.
Now, as funny as it sounds, I honestly think I might actually agree with Peter here. I don't think he deliberately tried to cheat, at least not in the second game. His sequence of play was so counterintuitive, and he had nothing to gain from it. In fact, if he played his basic combo the way that he should have in the second game, his hand was basically an automatic win. The head judge was also quite reasonable, and he didn't believe that Peter's actions were deliberate.
So,
It's also my first time playing this deck
so
too,
Peter,
but
here's the plus side. Is
Oh my
I don't
God.
think you're purposely cheating.
no, but it's so
And I'm not going to
basic.
DQ you.
I'm just saying the moves are so basic, and
Yeah,
it's
he
just.
fucks it
Be
up.
happy with you.
But it's not that. It's
wanna
just the moves are just so basic. It's unreal what's happening.
So Peter would receive only a match penalty and not a disqualification, allowing him to play further into the tournament. But he wouldn't do too hot, having been pretty tilted from this match to say the least. The match would be posted throughout social media, forums, Facebook groups, Reddit. Everyone in the community would witness the hilarity. And more than anything, it was fantastic entertainment. But the story doesn't end here. Ironically, Peter's official ban from the Konami organized events would be lifted around that time, granting him the ability to attend YCS Seattle only 1 week after the ARG incident. He would play the same deck, with one of his opponents going on Reddit to note that Peter was unpleasant, extremely rushed, and grabbed his cards without asking, overall being a very annoying opponent to play against. And at this tournament, Peter would somehow get disqualified and banned yet again.
Damn.
Though the exact reason for his disqualification wasn't explicitly confirmed, according to a user on Reddit, it was allegedly for UC cheating related to something with the graveyard. Now, I know what you're thinking. Based on the prior story so far, you probably think that Peter would return to get his revenge once more. But this was seemingly the nail in the coffin for Peter's career as a player, for he would surprisingly not return to the competitive scene. But Peter's ghost would somehow still be in the community and haunt it in other ways.
Oh no.
Also, if you guys made it this far into the video, it hopefully means that you enjoy my content. And I want to let you know really quick, I do have a Patreon page where you can get early access to my future videos like this one and behind the scenes content, including footage from these stories that didn't make the final cut. Group of Yu-Gi-Oh players, many were quick to call out. Several customers would state that this seller had sent them damaged high Remember
Okay,
how we
hold
mentioned earlier that Peter would buy and sell cards to fund his travels?
on.
Well, it
Okay.
turns out that being banned from playing, Peter would instead shift his complete attention onto buying and selling cards, creating an online store on the eBay-owned platform
Oh.
TCG Player. But over the next few months, across buy and sell groups on Facebook, there would be complaints about a certain TCG Player account by the name of Illumina, which was probably inspired by the Lightsworn monster, if you
Okay.
see where I'm going with this. In
Oh,
Yu-Gi-Oh!
no.
Trade complaints, a group consisting of over 11,000 members, several customers would state that this seller had sent them damaged, high-value cards. In one case, it was
Huh.
a Starlight Rare IP Masquerena, which at the time had a market value of over $1,000 USD. But many
Yep,
others were
yeah,
even less
see,
fortunate,
people,
where they
see,
would not
people,
receive their order at
people's
all,
paying
having
this
to
much
complain
money.
to TCG Player support in order to get a refund. With such a concentrated group of Yu-Gi-Oh! Players, many were quick to call out that Lumina was in fact an online store that was owned and operated by Peter Chang.
Oh,
Quite a fitting name,
wow.
as Lightsworns were one of his most successful decks over a decade prior. As time passed, there were more and more complaints about Peter, ranging from damaged cards that were received not as pictured, to more orders not being received at all. This was a recurring trend, for it seemed that Peter was extremely forgetful, or maybe he just didn't intend to ship out the smaller cards in the first place in the hopes that the customer might forget. Stories would also trickle across the internet to Reddit, where a thread asking sellers to watch out for on TCG Player would have the most upvoted response be about Lumina. Some less unfortunate players would receive their order, but it would be missing a card or two. With other
Ouchie.
orders, his communication through TCG Player would be less than accommodating, with the buyer having to send multiple messages only to get one sentence in reply before getting ghosted. A belligerent
Wow.
customer who didn't receive his package directly slid into Peter Chang's DMs, with Peter asking, "But how you know it was me?" before being informed that there were many threads about him online. "Oh wow, can't believe there's a thread," he would say. "That's kinda cool." Peter then stated that the package was delivered and provided a tracking number to prove it, except it wasn't delivered to the right address. But with a quick glance at the screenshots, it seems that the buyer was actually moving during his deal
I'm
with
not
Peter,
bla-
so we
I'm
can't
not-
fully
I'm not
attribute fault
blaming
to
here.
Peter here. But I thought it was interesting
Ah.
that one person just had enough and actually slid into Peter's personal DMs. Another member alleged that Peter canceled an order he made after the card's price surged overnight, only to relist the exact same cards on the same day that the order was canceled at a higher
$16
price.
for a
One
card.
customer even felt blackmailed and threatened by Peter Chang, though there wasn't any hard evidence beyond their comment. People quickly realized that Lumina, aka Peter Chang, was to be avoided at all costs. And to the hilarity of the
Yikes.
entire community, one unsuspecting fellow would
check.
ask for a reference check on Peter Chang, only for the thread to be met with almost 200 laugh reacts. Luckily, he asked before making a deal with Peter. All of this would culminate in a chunk of terrible feedback in Lumina's store on TCG Player, with over 55 pages to a total
Oh,
of
damn.
548 negative reviews. And Peter
Yowzy.
Chang being added to the community blacklist for bad traders and scammers. But in Peter's
Ooh.
defense, he somehow still had a positive lifetime rating, with 99.4% on over 50,000 sales, which
Wow.
means that he had actually sold a lot of cards successfully. And though rare, among the heaps of negative comments, there were at least a handful of customers who successfully bought cards from Peter with no issue. But to this very
good.
day, Peter Chang continues to peddle cardboard online, with a store comprising of over 450,000 individual products, the last remaining sliver of the legend himself.
Well, okay then. Well, I hope you all enjoyed. I mean, this is a damn good hour. But anyway, I hope you all enjoyed. Quite frank. If you got any other videos, quite frank, you want to show up and all that stuff, by all means, send them to me. I'll watch them. Um, make more Yu-Gi-Oh videos or something like that. But anyway, I'll see you all next time. Oh, for tomorrow we're still going to be doing Hello Lady, so that's something. But anyway, I'll see you all next time. Well, tomorrow anyway.